A flight attendant slapped a quiet black woman on a private jet. Less than 12 hours later, her airline was losing millions. Have you ever seen someone judged in seconds, only to discover later that they were the most important person in the room? On a stormy night in Dallas, passengers aboard a luxury private jet watched a flight attendant publicly humiliate a quiet black woman, wearing a faded hoodie and carrying a worn suitcase. Nobody defended her. Nobody asked who she was. But by sunrise, the airline that allowed it was in full crisis mode. What they didn't know was that the woman they dismissed wasn't just a passenger. She was the billionaire investor preparing to save their company. And what happened next would change every life involved forever. The slap cracked through the business class cabin like a gunshot. For one suspended second, nobody moved. The engines hummed outside in the rain. Soft amber lights glowed along the ceiling. A glass of sparkling water trembled on a polished tray table. Somewhere near the front of the cabin, a woman gasped. Then silence. Amber Collins stood in the aisle, her hand still raised from the motion she could no longer take back. She was the senior flight attendant aboard Skybridge Air Charter Flight 728, a luxury overnight service scheduled to depart Dallas for New York. For 9 years, Amber had worked private aviation. 9 years of wealthy clients. 9 years of celebrities, executives, athletes, politicians, and people who expected the world to bend around them. She thought she knew exactly who belonged in cabins like this, and exactly who did not. The woman standing in front of her did not fit the picture. At least, not the picture Amber had already created in her mind. The passenger wore a faded dark hoodie, simple jeans, comfortable sneakers that had clearly seen better days. A worn carry-on sat beside her leg. No designer handbag. No expensive jewelry. No assistant. No security team. Nothing about her appearance suggested power. Nothing about her appearance suggested wealth. Nothing about her appearance suggested that she belonged aboard a private charter flight carrying some of the country's most influential travelers. At least, that was what everyone assumed, including Amber, including nearly every passenger watching from their leather seats. The woman slowly adjusted her wire-rimmed glasses. Her cheek was red, but her expression never changed. No tears, no anger, no shouting. Only a calmness that somehow felt heavier than rage. Amber expected a scene. Most people would have made one. Instead, the woman simply looked at her and spoke quietly. "So that's the choice you made." Her voice was calm, steady, almost thoughtful. Amber felt a strange chill crawl across her shoulders. The passenger wasn't acting like someone who had lost. She was acting like someone who had just learned something important. The silence stretched. A businessman near the window finally chuckled. The sound broke the tension. "Well," he said, lifting his drink, "that's one way to handle a seat dispute." A few passengers laughed nervously, not because it was funny, because people often laugh when they are uncomfortable. Amber welcomed the laughter. It made her feel in control again. She straightened her uniform jacket. "Ma'am," she said sharply, "you've already disrupted boarding. If you continue causing problems, I will have security remove you from this aircraft." The woman tilted her head slightly. The corners of her mouth almost formed a smile. Almost. Then she spoke. "By tomorrow morning," she said softly, "this company will wish tonight never happened." The businessman laughed louder. Several others joined him. One woman rolled her eyes. Another passenger shook his head and muttered something about people always looking for attention. Nobody asked who the woman was. Nobody asked why she sounded so certain. Nobody wanted to know, because they had already decided. People make decisions quickly, sometimes in seconds, sometimes in less. A glance, a jacket, a pair of shoes, a skin color, a neighborhood, a name, and suddenly they believe they know everything. The rain continued to strike the aircraft windows. Beyond the glass, airport floodlights shimmered across the wet runway. The storm had grounded dozens of flights throughout Texas. Travelers across the region were stranded. Tempers were short. Schedules were ruined. And none of the passengers aboard Flight 728 knew they were sitting inside the most expensive mistake Skybridge Air would ever make. The woman bent down calmly and lifted her carry-on. Then, without another word, she walked toward the back of the cabin. Amber stepped aside, victorious. Or so she thought. As the woman moved down the aisle, eyes followed her, some curious, some amused, some dismissive. Only one person looked genuinely concerned, a young flight attendant standing near the galley. Her name was Olivia Martinez. 24 years old, new to the company, still young enough to believe people deserved the benefit of the doubt. Olivia had watched everything, the argument, the insults, the slap, and something about the passenger bothered her. Not because she looked familiar. Not exactly. Because she didn't. Yet her calm felt wrong. Completely wrong. People who were embarrassed usually looked embarrassed. People who were angry usually looked angry. This woman looked neither. She looked like someone collecting information. Like someone quietly taking notes. Like someone who had just reached a conclusion. Olivia watched her settle into a seat near the rear of the cabin. The woman folded her hands neatly in her lap, then turned toward the rain-covered window. Still calm, still silent, still watching. The businessman raised his whiskey glass again. "You've got to admit," he said loudly enough for half the cabin to hear. "The crew here knows how to maintain standards." More laughter. Amber smiled politely. Professional. Controlled. Exactly the response expected in luxury service. But Olivia noticed something else. The woman in the hoodie heard every word, and still did not react. That unsettled her even more, because people can fake confidence. People can fake anger. People can fake courage. But real certainty? That was different. And the woman sitting quietly near the back possessed an alarming amount of it. Outside, lightning flashed across distant clouds. The aircraft door finally closed. The cabin lights dimmed slightly. Passengers settled into their seats. Phones disappeared. Conversations resumed. Life moved on. Or at least everyone thought it had. No one knew that cameras had recorded what happened. No one knew that a single decision made in anger would soon travel far beyond this airplane. No one knew that somewhere in Manhattan, executives were preparing for the most important financial agreement in their company's history. No one knew that the future of Skybridge Air was tied directly to the woman they had just humiliated. And no one knew her name. Not yet. The aircraft slowly pushed back from the gate. Rain streaked across the windows like silver lines. Amber checked her watch. Everything was back under control. At least that was what she believed. Near the rear of the cabin, the woman finally closed her eyes. For a moment, she remembered another night many years ago. Another storm. Another place. Another moment when people looked at her and decided what she was worth before she ever opened her mouth. She remembered how much that had hurt. She remembered promising herself she would never become bitter, and she remembered why she had kept that promise. Slowly, she opened her eyes again. The city lights shimmered below the storm clouds. A reflection stared back at her through the glass. Calm, patient, certain. Monica Reed knew exactly what came next. The people around her did not. And by the time the sun rose over New York the next morning, their lives would never look the same again. The aircraft turned toward the runway. The engines roared. And the longest night in Skybridge Air's history had just begun. But long before the rain over Dallas, long before the private jet, long before Amber Collins made the worst decision of her career. Monica Reed had spent her morning somewhere most of the passengers on Flight 728 had never seen. Southside Chicago. The neighborhood woke slowly beneath a gray winter sky. Streetlights flickered above cracked sidewalks. Old brick apartment buildings stood shoulder to shoulder like tired survivors that had weathered decades of storms. A city bus hissed to a stop near the corner. Its brakes released with a familiar sigh. A grocery cart rattled across the pavement. Somewhere in the distance, a siren echoed and faded. Life moved forward, just as it always did. Monica stepped out of a small community center, carrying 2 large boxes filled with canned food. Nobody looked twice at her. Why would they? She looked like a volunteer, maybe a teacher, maybe a church worker. Certainly not one of the wealthiest women in America. Inside the community center, volunteers prepared lunch for nearly 200 residents. The smell of soup drifted through the warm building. Coffee brewed in industrial-sized machines. Children colored pictures at folding tables, while elderly neighbors chatted quietly beneath fluorescent lights. Monica loved places like this. Places where people showed up for one another. Places where kindness mattered more than titles. "Morning, Miss Monica." The voice came from an elderly man sitting near the entrance. His name was Walter Jenkins, a Vietnam veteran, 76 years old, bad knees, worse eyesight, and enough pride to make accepting help almost impossible. Monica smiled immediately. "Morning, Walter." He pointed toward the coffee station. "They finally got the good coffee today." She laughed. "You say that every week." "Because every week it's true." Walter's grin widened. Monica sat beside him for a few minutes. The old veteran always reminded her of her grandfather. Same quiet dignity, same stubbornness, same habit of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. "What did the doctor say?" she asked. Walter's smile faded slightly. "Same thing as last time." He shrugged. "Medication costs more than I can afford." Monica already knew that. The center's director had mentioned it 2 days earlier. Walter had been cutting pills in half to make prescriptions last longer. He thought nobody knew. People always knew, especially people paying attention. Monica changed the subject. They talked about baseball, the weather, a neighborhood kid who had recently earned a college scholarship. By the time she stood up to leave, Walter looked lighter somehow. Not because his problems had disappeared, because someone had listened. Sometimes that mattered more. As Monica crossed the room, she slipped an envelope into the director's office mailbox. No note, no signature. Just enough money to cover Walter's prescriptions for the next year. Nobody would know where it came from, especially Walter. That was exactly how she preferred it. Outside, cold wind swept through the streets. Monica pulled her hoodie tighter and headed toward a nearby auto repair shop. An old blue sedan sat stranded beside the curb. Its hood was open. A young mother named Denise stood nearby looking exhausted. 2 small children waited in the back seat. The youngest couldn't have been older than 5. Monica had met Denise months earlier. 3 jobs, 2 children, no child support. No complaints. The woman somehow kept going, even when life seemed determined to knock her down. "What's wrong?" Monica asked. Denise forced a smile. "Alternator." The word sounded expensive, because it was. "I'll figure something out." Monica glanced toward the mechanic. A brief conversation followed. 5 minutes later, the repair bill had mysteriously been paid. Denise never saw the transaction happen. She only stared when the mechanic suddenly announced that the repair had been covered. Covered by who? The mechanic shrugged. No idea. Monica smiled and looked away. Denise's eyes narrowed. You had something to do with this. Nope. You did. Nope. The young mother laughed despite herself. You are impossible. Monica grinned. So I've been told. A little boy suddenly ran forward and hugged Monica's leg. The gesture was unexpected. The child looked up. Thank you. Monica swallowed hard. Children had a way of breaking through defenses adults spent years so hours building. She crouched down. You take care of your mom, okay? The boy nodded seriously, like someone accepting an important mission. Then Monica stood and continued down the street. The city moved around her. Delivery trucks, bus stops, construction crews, people rushing to jobs, people trying to survive, people carrying invisible burdens. She understood those burdens better than most, because she had carried them herself. There had been a time when Monica Reed knew exactly what it felt like to worry about rent, to worry about food, to wonder whether opportunity existed for people who looked like her. Her mother had worked double shifts cleaning medical linens. Her father disappeared before she could remember him. Their apartment had been small, cold in winter, hot in summer. Sometimes there was enough. Sometimes there wasn't. What Monica remembered most wasn't the poverty. It was the assumptions. Teachers who lowered expectations. Employers who doubted her before she spoke. Strangers who decided her future after a single glance. She remembered all of it. Every look, every dismissal, every closed door. And she remembered promising herself that if success ever arrived, she would never forget what those moments felt like. Most people assumed wealth changed everything. It didn't. It simply changed which problems showed up. The wounds stayed. The lessons stayed. And the memories definitely stayed. A black SUV rolled quietly to the curb beside her. The driver stepped out. Good afternoon, Ms. Reed. Monica sighed dramatically. There you are? The driver smiled. Your assistant called twice, which means Joanne is worried. Very. Monica laughed softly. That sounded accurate. She climbed into the vehicle. The warmth inside felt comforting after the cold wind. As the SUV pulled away, the neighborhood passed slowly outside the window. A mural painted across a brick wall. A church. A barber shop. Children playing basketball on a cracked court. Home. No matter how many billions appeared in her investment portfolio, this place still felt like home. Her phone buzzed. The screen displayed one name. Joanne Parker. Monica answered immediately. You vanished again. Joanne didn't sound angry, just resigned. I'm literally talking to you right now. You have meetings. I know. Important meetings. I know. A board call. I know. A financing review. I know. And the Skybridge negotiations. Monica leaned back in her seat. Outside, snowflakes had begun drifting through the air. Small and delicate. Almost beautiful. What about Skybridge? She asked. They confirmed the final review package. Joanne paused. Michael Grayson believes everything will be signed within 48 hours. Monica looked out the window. 48 hours. After 7 months of negotiations, after hundreds of pages of due diligence, after endless discussions about restructuring, the finish line was finally visible. Skybridge needed help, and Monica genuinely wanted to help. The company wasn't perfect, far from it, but she believed it could improve. At least she had believed that this morning. I'll review the documents tonight, Monica said. Joanne sounded relieved. Good. The call ended. Monica slipped her phone back into her pocket. Neither woman knew how dramatically those plans were about to change. The SUV disappeared into Chicago traffic, and somewhere far away, storm clouds were already gathering over Texas, waiting, patiently, like fate itself. By midnight, Monica Reed would be sitting aboard a private charter jet. By sunrise, one company would be fighting for survival. And by then, everyone would finally learn what happens when you mistake humility for weakness. Hours before Monica Reed boarded Flight 728, the mood inside Skybridge Air's Manhattan headquarters could not have been more different. The company occupied 20 floors of glass and steel overlooking the Hudson River. From the outside, it looked successful, powerful, untouchable. The lobby featured polished marble floors imported from Italy. Giant digital screens displayed elegant advertisements showing smiling flight crews, luxury cabins, and sunsets viewed from private jets. Everything about the building projected confidence. But confidence can be expensive, and sometimes it is borrowed. On the 38th floor, Michael Grayson sat at the head of a conference table surrounded by worried faces. The CEO had spent 23 years building his career in aviation. His hair had gone gray during those years. His smile appeared less often now. And tonight, neither his smile nor his confidence were anywhere to be found. A financial report glowed on the screen at the front of the room. Nobody liked what they were seeing. Revenue was down. Debt was climbing. Operating costs continued to rise. Several major corporate clients had quietly shifted their business elsewhere. One board member loosened his tie. Another rubbed his forehead. A third stared out the window at the darkening skyline. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Finally, Michael broke the silence. "We can survive this." The words sounded rehearsed, because they were. He had repeated them for months. Every meeting, every conference call, every quarterly review. "We can survive this." The problem was that fewer people believed him each time he said it. Across the table sat Richard Calloway, chairman of the board. 70 years old, sharp as a razor, patient only when patience served a purpose. "Can we?" Richard asked quietly. The room became even stiller. Michael looked toward the financial projections. He knew the numbers better than anyone. They haunted his sleep. The company needed capital. Fast. Without it, layoffs would begin. Routes would disappear. Aircraft would be sold. Skybridge might survive, but it would emerge smaller, weaker, damaged. And everyone in the room knew it. Except there was one lifeline, one final opportunity. One investor, a $300 million rescue package, months of negotiations, months of audits, months of meetings, months of legal reviews. The deal was scheduled to close within 48 hours, if it happened. Richard folded his hands. "Tell me again why you're so confident." Michael took a breath. "Because she believes in the company." Several board members exchanged glances. The investor remained mostly invisible. That had always fascinated them. Most billionaires loved attention. Most wanted interviews, recognition, influence. Their names attached to everything. Not this one. Monica Reed preferred the shadows. She attended meetings remotely, sent representatives when possible, asked difficult questions, demanded accountability, but never sought publicity. Many employees inside Skybridge didn't even know her name. One board member laughed softly. "Imagine that." "What?" Michael asked. "A woman worth billions wants to save an airline that can't seem to stay out of trouble." Nobody smiled, because it wasn't really funny. The airline had problems beyond finances. Complaints, turnover, customer service issues. Nothing catastrophic. Nothing headline-worthy. But enough small incidents to create concern. Michael knew it. The board knew it. And Monica Reed definitely knew it. That was why her due diligence process had been so extensive. She wanted proof that Skybridge could improve. Not promises. Proof. The meeting continued another hour. Forecasts, spreadsheets, strategies. Eventually everyone left, one by one, until only Michael remained. The city lights glittered beyond the windows. He loosened his tie and stared across Manhattan. Far below, yellow taxis moved through the streets like streams of light. He thought about the company, about the thousands of employees depending on him, about the pilots, mechanics, flight attendants, families, about the future. Then his phone buzzed. His assistant. "Sorry to bother you, Michael." "It's okay. You have a call from legal." Michael answered. The company's lead attorney sounded optimistic. The final review from Monica Reed's team came back. Michael sat up straighter. "And?" "No major issues." For the first time all day, relief crossed his face. "That's good. Very good." The attorney paused. "If everything stays on schedule, we should be ready to finalize." Michael leaned back. 48 hours. Just 48 more hours. He thanked the attorney and ended the call. For a moment, hope returned. Real hope. The kind he hadn't felt in months. What Michael didn't know was that while he sat in a skyscraper overlooking Manhattan, Monica Reed was walking through South Side Chicago helping people who would never appear in a financial report. He didn't know she had paid for a veteran's medicine. He didn't know she had repaired a single mother's car. He didn't know it still carried the values she learned long before money entered her life. And he definitely didn't know that at this very moment, a storm system was moving toward Texas. A storm that would cancel flights, change schedules, alter plans, and place Monica Reed aboard a particular aircraft. An aircraft staffed by a woman named Amber Collins, a woman whose certainty about people often arrived before facts did. Outside Michael's office, the cleaning crew began their evening rounds. Vacuum cleaners hummed softly through empty hallways. Lights switched off floor by floor. The headquarters slowly settled into nighttime silence. Michael grabbed his coat. For the first time in weeks, he felt cautiously optimistic. The company would survive. The investment would close. The crisis would end. At least that was what he believed. Far away, thunder rolled across the Texas sky, and fate quietly changed direction. Neither Michael Grayson nor anyone else inside Skybridge Air understood that the future of the company was no longer sitting inside a boardroom. It was walking toward an airport, carrying a worn suitcase, wearing a faded hoodie, and preparing to reveal what kind of company Skybridge truly was when it believed nobody important was watching. The storm arrived faster than meteorologists predicted. By late afternoon, dark clouds had swallowed most of the Texas sky. Rain hammered airport windows. Departure boards flickered with delays. Then cancellations. Then more cancellations. Travelers crowded customer service counters. Phones rang endlessly. Voices rose. Tempers shortened. At Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, hundreds of stranded passengers searched desperately for alternatives. Monica Reed stood among them, calm as ever. A small carry-on rested beside her leg. Her commercial flight to New York had just been canceled. The airline agent behind the counter looked exhausted. She couldn't have been older than 22. Her eyes were red from a long shift. Monica watched as angry travelers blamed her for weather she couldn't control. One man shouted. Another demanded compensation. A woman threatened legal action. The young employee kept apologizing, again and again. Monica waited patiently until the crowd thinned. When her turn finally arrived, she offered a warm smile. "Long day?" The young woman looked surprised. "Very, I can tell." The employee laughed softly. It was probably the first genuine laugh she'd had all afternoon. "I'm sorry about your flight, ma'am. Not your fault." The employee nodded gratefully. She spent several minutes searching for alternatives. Nothing. Every route was overbooked. Every available seat had disappeared. Finally, she looked up. "I wish I had better news." Monica smiled. "You already gave me something better." The employee frowned. "What?" "You treated me kindly." For a moment, the young woman looked close to tears. Monica picked up her bag, then quietly slipped a folded note onto the counter. The employee didn't notice until Monica walked away. Inside was a $100 bill and a handwritten message. "Keep going. The world needs more people like you." No signature, no explanation, just encouragement. The kind Monica herself had needed many years earlier. Outside, rain pounded the pavement. Monica stepped beneath the terminal awning and called Joanne. "I'll need another way to New York." Joanne didn't hesitate. "I'll find something." 15 minutes later, her phone rang. "I found one seat." "Where?" "A Skybridge charter leaving from a private terminal." Monica smiled. "Book it." The private terminal sat on the far side of the airport. Smaller, quieter, far more luxurious. Black SUVs lined the entrance. Private security guarded glass doors. Inside, wealthy travelers sat in leather chairs drinking coffee while watching the storm through floor-to-ceiling windows. Monica entered carrying her own luggage. Several heads turned immediately. Not because she caused a disturbance, because she looked different from everyone else. A businessman wearing a $1,000 suit glanced at her hoodie and quickly looked away. A woman carrying a designer handbag studied Monica for a moment before returning to her phone. The judgments came quickly, as they often did. Monica barely noticed. She had spent her entire life watching people reveal themselves. The receptionist checked her reservation. Everything was confirmed. Seat 3A business class, full fare, no issues. Monica thanked her and moved toward the waiting area. Across the room stood Amber Collins. The senior flight attendant reviewed passenger manifests while speaking with another crew member. Amber took pride in appearances. Perfect uniform, perfect hair, perfect posture. To her, luxury service wasn't simply about hospitality. It was about maintaining a certain image, a certain standard. And image mattered, perhaps too much. When Amber looked up and saw Monica, something shifted, only slightly. But enough. Her eyes moved across the hoodie, the worn carry-on, the inexpensive shoes. Amber's expression cooled almost immediately. Not openly, not enough for anyone else to notice. But the judgment had already happened. Nearby stood Olivia Martinez, young, observant, still optimistic enough to give strangers a chance. She noticed the change instantly. Amber saw a problem. Olivia saw a passenger. That difference would matter later. Boarding began 40 minutes later. Rain lashed against the terminal windows. Lightning flashed across the horizon. Passengers walked across the wet tarmac toward the waiting aircraft. The jet gleamed beneath floodlights. Elegant, white, powerful. Its engines slept quietly beneath the storm. Monica climbed the stairs carrying her own bag. Inside, the cabin smelled of cedar wood and fresh leather. Soft amber lights glowed overhead. 3 passengers had already boarded. A middle-aged couple dressed in expensive resort clothing, and a businessman nursing a glass of whiskey. The man glanced up. His eyes lingered on Monica, then on her clothing, then back to his drink. The judgment took less than 3 seconds. Amber greeted Monica at the top of the stairs. Boarding pass. The word came out sharper than necessary. Monica handed over her phone. Amber studied the screen, longer than necessary. Everything was valid. Everything was confirmed. Yet she kept looking, searching for something, anything, a reason. Monica remained patient. Finally, Amber returned the phone. "Please wait here." Monica raised an eyebrow. "Is there a problem?
I apologize for
I
the
need to
delay.
verify
I just
something."
need to confirm a few
"There
details.
shouldn't be."
I understand. Thank you.
Amber offered a tight smile. "I'm sure." She walked away. Several passengers watched. The businessman smirked openly. 5 minutes passed, then 7, then 10. Monica stood quietly near the entrance while rain rattled against the aircraft. The businessman finally chuckled. "Tough night for airport security." The couple laughed politely. Monica ignored them. Eventually, Amber returned, clearly disappointed. "The reservation checks out." Monica already knew that. Amber gestured down the aisle. "However, due to operational considerations, we'll need to move you to a different seat." Monica looked toward the front of the cabin. Seat 3A remained empty. "My ticket says 3A." Amber's smile vanished. "That seat is no longer available." "It appears available." The businessman laughed again. Amber's jaw tightened. The storm outside intensified. Thunder rolled across the runway. And somewhere deep inside the aircraft, the first crack in Skybridge's future quietly began to form. Monica remained calm. Amber grew irritated. Neither woman knew it yet. But this conversation would become the moment everything changed. Because some mistakes begin with anger. Some begin with arrogance. And some begin with a simple decision to treat another human being as less important than yourself. Amber Collins was about to make all three, and Flight 728 had not even left the ground. For a moment, neither woman moved. The storm rattled the aircraft. Rain streamed down the windows in silver rivers. Thunder rolled across the runway. And inside the warm glow of the luxury cabin, tension hung in the air like invisible smoke. Monica Reed stood beside seat 3A. Amber stood in the aisle. The businessman with the whiskey watched eagerly, as though he had purchased a front-row ticket to a performance. The older couple exchanged uncertain glances, but remained silent. Nobody wanted to get involved. That was usually how these things happened. One person crossed a line. Several people noticed. Most looked away. Amber folded her arms. "Ma'am, I need you to cooperate." Monica looked at her boarding pass, then at the empty seat, then back at Amber. Her voice remained calm. "I already am cooperating." Amber's jaw tightened. "The seat assignment has changed. Then perhaps someone should have informed me before I boarded." A brief flash of irritation crossed Amber's face. She wasn't used to resistance, especially resistance delivered so politely. Monica wasn't arguing. She wasn't raising her voice. She wasn't creating a scene. And somehow that made the situation worse. The businessman chuckled again. "You know," he said, taking a sip of whiskey, "sometimes people should just be grateful they're allowed aboard." The comment floated through the cabin. Nobody responded. Not even Amber. But her silence felt like agreement. Monica slowly turned her head toward the man. She studied him for a moment. Not with anger, not with judgment, almost with sadness. Then she looked away. That somehow made him uncomfortable, because insults are easier when the target reacts. Monica refused to give him that satisfaction. Near the galley, Olivia Martinez watched everything unfold. Something felt wrong. Not just the treatment, the passenger herself. Monica carried herself differently than most people. She wasn't intimidated. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She seemed completely secure in who she was. Olivia had seen wealthy passengers before. Movie stars, athletes, executives. Many of them demanded attention. This woman demanded nothing, yet somehow commanded the room anyway. That bothered Olivia's curiosity. Eventually, Amber spoke again. "Take the rear seat, please." Monica looked at her, then quietly picked up her bag. Without another word, she walked toward the back of the cabin. Amber exhaled. Victory. At least that was how she interpreted it. The businessman smirked. The couple relaxed. The confrontation appeared finished, but Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something important had just happened, something none of them fully understood. As passengers settled in, she slipped quietly into the galley. The cabin door closed. Ground crews moved beneath sheets of rain outside. Olivia opened the crew tablet. The passenger manifest appeared. Rows of names, seat assignments, travel information, VIP notes, mostly routine. She scrolled, then stopped. Seat 3A, Monica Reed. The name stirred something. A memory. A headline. A photograph. Something. She frowned. Where had she seen it before? The jet began preparing for departure. Engines started. The aircraft vibrated softly beneath her feet. Still, Olivia stared at the screen. The name felt familiar. Very familiar. She opened another company database, an internal system containing profiles for high-value clients and strategic partners. Mostly executives used it. Crew members rarely did. The search bar blinked. Olivia typed 2 words. Monica Reed. The system loaded. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the profile appeared. Olivia froze. The color drained from her face. No way. She whispered it aloud before realizing she had spoken. Her heartbeat accelerated. She stared at the screen, then read it again and again. Founder and CEO, Horizon Technologies. Managing Director, Horizon Capital. Estimated net worth, $4.8 billion. Strategic Investor. Current negotiation status. Confidential. Pending final approval. Associated investment value, $300 million. Olivia blinked, certain she had misunderstood. But the information remained unchanged. Her eyes moved upward. A professional photograph appeared beside the profile. The same face, the same eyes, the same woman sitting quietly near the back of the cabin. Only in the photograph she wore a tailored blazer instead of a hoodie. That was all. Olivia suddenly understood why Monica looked familiar. She had seen her months ago during a business magazine interview. One of those articles celebrating self-made entrepreneurs. Monica Reed. The woman who grew up poor and built a technology empire. The woman helping negotiate the deal that might save Skybridge Air. The woman Amber had just humiliated. Olivia felt cold. Very cold. The aircraft began taxiing. Outside, runway lights reflected across wet pavement. Inside the galley, Olivia stared at the screen as the implications settled over her. This wasn't merely a customer service mistake. This wasn't an angry passenger. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This could become a catastrophe. She quickly walked toward the front of the cabin. Amber was reviewing safety procedures. Amber. The senior attendant glanced up. What? Olivia lowered her voice. I need to show you something. Amber looked annoyed. What now? It's important. Can it wait? No. Something in Olivia's tone finally got her attention. They stepped into the galley. Olivia handed over the tablet. Amber glanced at it, then frowned, then laughed. Actually laughed. A short, dismissive sound. Seriously? Olivia stared. You don't understand. No, Amber replied. I think you don't understand. She handed the tablet back. That's not Monica Reed. It is. It isn't. The profile photo matches. Amber rolled her eyes. Olivia. Her voice carried the patient tone people use with children. Monica Reed is a billionaire. Exactly. Amber pointed toward the rear cabin. The woman back there is traveling alone in a worn hoodie, carrying a $20 suitcase. Olivia hesitated. Amber continued. Billionaires don't travel like that. Olivia thought about arguing. But Amber wasn't finished. You've been here 6 months. 14. Then you've been here long enough to know how this industry works. Amber adjusted her uniform. People with that kind of money don't sneak onto charter flights looking like that. Olivia looked back toward Monica. The woman sat quietly near the window, watching rain slide across the glass. Perfectly calm. Maybe some dew. Amber sighed. No. The answer came too quickly, too confidently. And that confidence worried Olivia more than anything, because certainty often blinds people, especially when certainty is built on assumptions. The aircraft finally reached the runway. Engines roared louder. Passengers fastened seatbelts. The city lights shimmered beyond the storm. Olivia returned slowly to her jump seat. Her stomach twisted. Something terrible was unfolding. She could feel it. Across the cabin, Monica remained still. Her reflection drifted across the rain-streaked window. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Olivia wasn't sure what she expected to see. Anger, humiliation, resentment. Instead, she saw something else. Disappointment. Not for herself. For them. For all of them. As if Monica had spent years hoping people would learn, and had just witnessed another lesson being ignored. The aircraft accelerated. Faster. Faster. The runway lights blurred. Then the wheels left the ground. Flight 728 rose into the storm-dark sky, and with every foot of altitude, Skybridge Air moved closer to a disaster none of them yet understood, except perhaps one woman sitting quietly near the back of the cabin, a woman who already knew exactly what kind of company she was flying with, and was beginning to decide what to do about it. The aircraft climbed through thick storm clouds. Rain streaked across the windows before disappearing into darkness. The cabin lights dimmed. Seatbelt signs remained illuminated. Most passengers settled into the comfortable rhythm of private air travel. But peace never truly arrived. Not for Monica. And not for Amber Collins. The tension between them lingered like static in the air. Amber tried to focus on her duties. Drink service, passenger requests, routine procedures. Yet every time she glanced toward the rear cabin, she found herself irritated all over again. Monica Reed sat quietly by the window. No complaints, no demands, no attempts to draw attention. That should have made things easier. Instead, it somehow made them worse. Because Amber couldn't stop thinking about her, the businessman with the whiskey certainly couldn't. His name was Bradley Foster, a real estate developer from Houston, the kind of man who mistook confidence for superiority. Halfway through his second drink, he looked toward the rear of the cabin and smirked. "You know," he announced loudly, "luxury travel isn't what it used to be." Several passengers looked up. Bradley raised his glass. "Used to be exclusive." Nobody responded. But the silence encouraged him. "Now anybody can wander in." The remark floated through the cabin, directed at Monica. Everyone knew it. Monica continued looking out the window, ignoring him completely. Bradley frowned. People like him enjoyed reactions. They fed on them. Without one, his words seemed smaller, less powerful. He took another drink. Amber heard the comment. She should have corrected him. She should have redirected the conversation. Instead, she pretended not to hear. And sometimes silence says more than words. Olivia noticed. She noticed everything. The young flight attendant had spent the last 30 minutes wrestling with a growing sense of dread. She knew who Monica Reed was. She knew what was at stake. And she knew Amber was making the situation worse. Every minute, every interaction, every decision. The company handbook emphasized respect, dignity, professionalism. But those values seemed strangely absent tonight. Olivia carried a tray of refreshments down the aisle. When she reached Monica's row, she paused. "Would you like anything, ma'am?" Monica turned from the window. A gentle smile appeared. The first genuine smile Olivia had seen all evening. "Just water, please." Of course. Olivia handed her a glass.
Thank you.
Their eyes met briefly. Something passed between them. Not recognition. Not yet. Something closer to understanding. Monica seemed to know Olivia was trying to do the right thing, trying to remain decent inside a situation that wasn't. "Thank you," Monica said softly. The words stayed with Olivia longer than they should have, because they sounded sincere. Most wealthy passengers thanked staff automatically, without thinking. Monica sounded like she actually meant it. Olivia moved on. Near the front of the cabin, Amber watched the exchange. Her irritation deepened. She wasn't entirely sure why. Maybe because Monica refused to behave like the person Amber had decided she was. The picture no longer matched, and that made Amber uncomfortable. The turbulence arrived without warning. Not severe, but enough to jolt the aircraft. Several glasses rattled. A passenger grabbed an armrest. The seatbelt sign illuminated again. Outside, lightning flashed through distant clouds. The aircraft shuddered briefly, then steadied. Most passengers relaxed. Except one. An elderly man seated near the center section. His breathing suddenly changed. Short, fast, uneven. His hands trembled visibly. At first nobody noticed. Then his water glass slipped from his grip. It hit the carpet. Olivia turned immediately. "Sir?"
I need immediate medical
The man didn't answer.
and we have a
His face had gone pale. Very pale.
Is there a doctor on board?
"I can't." He swallowed hard.
Is there a doctor on
"I can't
board?
breathe." Amber hurried over.
Immediate medical
"What's wrong?"
assistance.
The man looked terrified. Not sick. Terrified. A different kind of emergency. His eyes darted toward the windows, toward the storm, toward the darkness outside. Then back to Amber. "I don't like flying." The confession came out broken, ashamed, like something he'd spent years hiding. The turbulence hit again. Small, but enough. The elderly passenger closed his eyes. His breathing worsened. Several travelers looked concerned. One woman stood halfway from her seat before sitting back down. Nobody seemed to know what to do. Then Monica quietly unbuckled her seatbelt. Amber immediately turned. "Ma'am, remain seated." Monica ignored the instruction. Not out of defiance, out of concern. She moved carefully toward the older man. Olivia stepped aside. Monica crouched beside him. Her voice was calm, steady, almost soothing. "What's your name?" The man struggled to answer.
Yes, but
"Arthur.
I don't
Arthur.
feel well.
Look at me."
It's all right. We're safe
He
now.
did.
The shaking has stopped.
Barely.
Just take a deep
"You're okay." "I'm not." "You are." The certainty in her voice seemed to cut through the panic. Monica smiled gently. "Have you experienced this before?" Arthur nodded. "After my wife died." The words nearly disappeared. Monica understood immediately. This wasn't just fear of flying. It was grief, loneliness, loss. Sometimes pain finds strange places to hide. The cabin grew quiet. Passengers watched. Even Bradley stopped drinking. Monica remained beside Arthur. "Let's do something together." His breathing remained uneven. She demonstrated a slow breath. In. Then another. Out.
Follow my hand
Arthur copied her.
and
Not
slowly
perfectly,
exhale.
but enough.
That's it. You're doing well.
Again. And again. And again. Gradually, his shoulders relaxed. The panic loosened its grip. The storm outside remained. The turbulence remained. But the fear began to fade. Monica stayed with him nearly 40 minutes, talking softly, listening, encouraging, learning about his late wife, his grandchildren, his first flight after losing her. The entire time she asked for nothing, expected nothing, wanted nothing. She simply helped, because someone needed help. Olivia watched in silence. Her throat tightened. Amber watched too. But instead of gratitude, something else flickered across her face. Resentment. Monica had become the center of attention, not intentionally, but inevitably. Passengers who had ignored her before now looked at her differently, respectfully. Even Bradley seemed uncertain, and Amber hated losing control of a room. When Arthur finally smiled again, several passengers quietly applauded. Nothing dramatic, just relief, human kindness. Monica looked embarrassed by the attention. She returned to her seat immediately, as if she wished nobody had noticed. Arthur called after her, "Thank you." Monica turned. "You would have done the same for me." The old man smiled sadly. "No." He shook his head. "I don't think I would have." The honesty surprised everyone, including Monica. She smiled softly, then sat down. For several minutes, the cabin felt different, warmer, lighter. The tension seemed gone, but only for a moment, because Amber Collins was still carrying her assumptions, still carrying her pride, still carrying the belief that she knew exactly who Monica Reed was, and that belief was about to collide with reality. As the aircraft continued east through the storm, Amber approached Monica's row once more. Her expression had hardened again. "Ma'am." Monica looked up. Amber gestured toward the aisle. "We need to discuss your seating arrangement." Olivia froze. Arthur looked concerned. Even Bradley lowered his drink. Monica slowly removed her reading glasses, then folded them carefully. The movement was calm, deliberate, patient. But something had changed. The room felt it. The passengers felt it. Olivia definitely felt it. Because for the first time all evening, Monica Reed looked less disappointed and more resolved. Outside the window, lightning illuminated the clouds. Inside the cabin, every eye turned toward the unfolding confrontation, and nobody realized they were seconds away from witnessing the moment that would cost Skybridge Air far more than money. The aircraft continued cutting through the storm. Soft turbulence rolled beneath the cabin floor. Outside the windows, clouds flashed white whenever lightning illuminated the night sky. Inside, silence settled over the passengers. Amber stood in the aisle. Monica remained seated. Neither woman looked away. "Ma'am," Amber said, forcing professionalism into her voice, "I asked you earlier to move seats." Monica folded her glasses carefully and placed them beside her water glass. "I remember." "Then why are you still sitting here?" Monica looked toward the empty seat near the front of the cabin, the same seat that had started everything. Then she looked back at Amber. "Because this is the seat I paid for." Amber felt several passengers watching. The awareness made her more defensive, more rigid. For years, she had built a reputation as someone who controlled difficult situations, someone who maintained standards, someone who never lost authority. Tonight, however, she felt that authority slipping, and she blamed Monica. The irony never crossed her mind. Arthur, the elderly passenger Monica had helped, shifted uneasily. "Miss," he said gently, "perhaps we should just let it go." Amber didn't answer him. Her eyes remained fixed on Monica. The businessman, Bradley Foster, leaned back with visible interest. This had become entertainment, something to break the boredom of a long flight. "What exactly is the problem?" Monica asked quietly. The question sounded sincere. That somehow irritated Amber even more. "You've disrupted boarding. I stood where you told me to stand. You questioned crew instructions. I asked a question. You challenged cabin procedures." Monica tilted her head slightly, the same way she had earlier. The same way she often did when someone revealed more about themselves than they intended. For a brief moment, Amber felt strangely uncomfortable, like she was being observed. Not judged. Observed. Measured. Understood. And she hated it. Olivia stood frozen near the galley. Her stomach tightened. She knew where this was heading. She just didn't know how to stop it. "Amber," she said softly. The senior attendant ignored her. "Amber." "Nothing."
Are you all right?
The younger woman looked toward Monica. For the first time all evening, Monica seemed tired. Not physically, emotionally. The kind of tiredness that comes from experiencing the same thing too many times. The same assumptions, the same dismissals, the same quiet message. "You don't belong here." Monica slowly stood. The movement immediately captured the room's attention. Amber stepped backward half a pace. Not because she felt threatened, because she suddenly realized how much presence Monica carried. The woman wasn't especially tall, wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic. Yet somehow she seemed larger standing than she had sitting. Monica picked up her boarding pass, held it up. "My ticket says 3A. Her voice remained calm, steady, measured. I followed every instruction. Nobody spoke. Even Bradley remained silent now. "I haven't raised my voice." Monica looked around the cabin. "I haven't insulted anyone." Then her gaze returned to Amber. "So tell me honestly." A pause. "What exactly is the problem?" The question landed heavily, because everyone knew the answer, and nobody wanted to say it. Amber felt heat rise into her face. For one terrible second, she understood how this looked, how it sounded, how unreasonable she appeared. But pride is a dangerous thing, especially when it feels cornered. Instead of stepping back, she doubled down. "You know exactly what the problem is." Monica's expression changed. Not much, just enough. A flicker. Disappointment. Again. That same disappointment Olivia had noticed before, as if Monica had hoped for better, and received confirmation instead. "I see," Monica said quietly. The words were simple, yet they somehow made Amber angrier. The aircraft hit another pocket of turbulence, a small jolt. Nothing serious, but enough to rattle nerves. Amber reached toward Monica, not aggressively, not intentionally, just emotionally, carelessly. One impulsive movement fueled by frustration, stress, embarrassment, and poor judgment. The contact was brief, a sudden motion, an instant that seemed to stretch far longer than reality allowed. Then silence. Complete silence. The cabin froze. Arthur stared. Olivia stopped breathing. Bradley's whiskey glass remained halfway to his lips. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody seemed entirely sure what had just happened. Monica slowly turned her head. Her glasses had shifted slightly. She adjusted them. Nothing more. No shouting. No outrage. No threat. The absence of reaction felt almost surreal. Amber herself appeared stunned, as though the moment had happened before she fully understood what she was doing. The realization arrived gradually, then all at once. The cabin felt smaller, hotter, heavier. Olivia's heart pounded. A passenger near the rear quietly lifted a phone, not openly, almost instinctively. A recording light appeared, tiny, barely noticeable, yet enormously important. Monica saw it. She said nothing. Amber opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again, searching for words, for justification, for something, anything. But explanations often arrive too late, especially after actions. Monica looked directly into Amber's eyes. The silence lasted several seconds. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. Yet every person aboard heard every word. You just made the most expensive decision of your career. No anger, no threat, no drama. Only certainty. Absolute certainty. Amber laughed nervously. A defensive sound. The kind people make when reality begins shifting beneath their feet. I think that's enough. Monica simply continued looking at her. Nothing more. Nothing less. The older woman then returned to her seat, sat down, folded her hands in her lap, and stared out the window. The conversation was over, at least for her. That frightened Olivia more than any argument could have, because Monica wasn't planning revenge in the way most people imagined revenge. She wasn't interested in scenes, or public humiliation, or social media outrage. She was thinking, deciding, evaluating, and that was far more dangerous. The flight continued. Service resumed awkwardly. Passengers spoke in whispers. The atmosphere never recovered. Amber attempted to behave as though everything remained normal, yet normal had disappeared. Arthur kept glancing toward Monica, concerned, grateful, confused. Bradley avoided looking at her entirely now. The amusement was gone. In its place sat uncertainty. Something about Monica's confidence bothered him, deeply. Meanwhile, Olivia returned to the galley. She opened the company profile again. Monica Reed, founder, billionaire, investor, potential rescuer of Skybridge Air. Olivia stared at the screen, then toward the rear cabin, then back again. The facts hadn't changed. Only the consequences had. And those consequences were growing larger every minute. Across the aisle, Monica finally closed her eyes. She remembered her mother's voice, a lesson from long ago, a lesson taught in a tiny apartment where money was scarce but wisdom was abundant. People reveal themselves when they think there is no cost. The memory returned clearly, as clear as if her mother sat beside her. Monica opened her eyes again. Outside, the storm had begun to thin. Below the clouds, distant city lights glittered far beneath the aircraft. New York waited ahead. So did a decision, a very important decision. And somewhere inside a glass tower in Manhattan, Michael Grayson was sleeping peacefully, still believing his company would be saved in 48 hours, still believing the future was secure, still believing Monica Reed remained his greatest ally. By sunrise, none of those beliefs would survive, and neither would the version of Skybridge Air that existed tonight. The rest of the flight passed beneath a blanket of uneasy silence. Nobody mentioned what had happened. Nobody needed to. The memory sat in the cabin like an uninvited passenger, visible, heavy, impossible to ignore. The storm gradually weakened as the aircraft crossed Pennsylvania and continued toward New York. Clouds broke apart. The turbulence faded. Below, scattered city lights glittered through gaps in the darkness. Most passengers pretended to sleep. A few worked quietly on laptops. Bradley Foster drank less than usual. Arthur sat quietly reading an old paperback novel, though he rarely turned a page. Even Amber seemed different now. The confidence she had carried so naturally earlier in the evening had begun to crack. Only slightly. Barely enough for others to notice. But it was there. Every time she glanced toward the rear cabin, she found Monica Reed sitting exactly where she had been before. Calm. Still. Watching the darkness beyond the glass. Not angry. Not emotional. Not even particularly interested in Amber anymore. And somehow that was worse. Olivia felt it too. She remained near the galley, stealing occasional glances toward Monica. The profile on the company tablet remained burned into her memory. $4.8 billion. Founder, investor, potential rescuer. Yet none of those things seemed nearly as important now as the fact that Monica had spent the evening helping strangers while being treated unfairly herself. Olivia couldn't stop thinking about Arthur. Most passengers would have stayed seated. Most would have focused on their own discomfort. Monica had done the opposite. That mattered. At least it mattered to Olivia. The aircraft began its descent shortly before midnight. Cabin lights brightened. Seatbacks returned upright. Passengers gathered belongings. The familiar rituals of arrival began. Outside the windows, New York appeared beneath the clouds. A sea of lights stretching endlessly into the darkness. Bridges glowed. Highways sparkled. The city looked almost magical from above. Monica watched quietly. She always loved this moment. The first sight of a city at night. The reminder that millions of people were living thousands of different stories simultaneously. Most would never meet. Yet somehow their choices still affected one another. The wheels touched the runway at 11:48 p.m. A gentle bump. Then another. The engines reversed. The aircraft slowed. And Flight 728 officially completed the journey that would soon be discussed in boardrooms, newsrooms, and executive offices across the country. Passengers stood. Overhead compartments opened. Phones reappeared. Conversations resumed. The illusion of normalcy returned, but only on the surface. Monica remained seated until most of the cabin had emptied. She preferred it that way. Always had. No rushing, no crowding, no performance. Arthur stopped beside her row. The elderly man smiled warmly. "I never thanked you properly." Monica looked up. "You already did." "No." He shook his head. "I don't think I did." For a moment he looked embarrassed. Then he extended his hand. "My wife used to say fear shrinks when someone sits beside you." Monica smiled. "She sounds wise." Arthur laughed softly. "She usually was." The old man squeezed her hand, then walked toward the exit. Monica watched him go. Another stranger. Another brief intersection of lives. Nothing extraordinary. Yet somehow meaningful. Olivia lingered nearby, clearly wanting to say something. Monica noticed. "Everything okay?" The young flight attendant hesitated. For several seconds she seemed unsure whether to speak. Then she nodded. "Yes." A pause. "Actually, no." Monica waited. "I know who you are." The words emerged quietly, almost apologetically. Monica smiled. "That happened occasionally." "Then you know something else too." Olivia swallowed. "I know what this investment means." Monica's expression softened. The young woman looked genuinely distressed, not afraid for herself, afraid for the company, and perhaps for Monica. "Miss Reed." Olivia stopped, searching for the right words. "I'm sorry." The apology was simple, honest. Monica appreciated that. "You didn't do anything." Olivia looked down. Maybe not. Then she met Monica's eyes again. "But I should have done more." For a brief moment, neither woman spoke. The sounds of arriving passengers echoed through the cabin. Rolling luggage, distant voices, footsteps. Life moving forward. Monica finally smiled. "You tried." Olivia looked surprised. "You noticed?" "I notice a lot of things." The young attendant laughed softly. For the first time that evening, some of the tension left her shoulders. "Thank you." Monica nodded, then stood. The conversation was over. Yet Olivia somehow felt lighter, as if she had just received permission to believe people could still choose decency. Near the front exit, Amber waited beside the open aircraft door, the same position she occupied after every flight, thanking passengers, offering polite farewells, performing professionalism. One traveler at a time. When Monica approached, Amber forced a smile. The gesture looked practiced, artificial, fragile. "Thank you for flying Skybridge." Monica stopped. Rain blew through the open doorway beyond them. Cool air filled the cabin. For a second, neither woman spoke. Amber expected criticism, a complaint, an argument, something. Instead, Monica simply looked at her. Not with hatred, not even with anger. Only disappointment. The same disappointment Amber had seen earlier, and somehow it stung more now. Then Monica stepped past her, without another word, without a threat, without drama. The dismissal felt strangely final, more final than any confrontation could have. Outside, rain fell steadily across the private terminal. Floodlights reflected off wet pavement. Ground crews moved through the darkness wearing reflective jackets. Monica descended the aircraft stairs carrying her own bag. No entourage, no security team, no fanfare. Just another traveler walking through the rain. A black SUV waited near the terminal entrance. The driver immediately stepped forward with an umbrella. Monica waved it away. The rain didn't bother her. Tonight she welcomed it. She crossed the tarmac alone. Water soaked her hoodie. Cold wind swept through the airfield. Behind her, the aircraft remained illuminated beneath the storm clouds. Skybridge Air. For months she had hoped to help the company. Months. Meetings, negotiations, audits, conversations. She had believed change was possible. Now she wasn't so sure. The driver opened the rear door. Monica climbed inside. The city lights shimmered through rain-covered glass. The door closed. Silence. Warmth. Privacy. Only then did she finally remove her glasses. For several seconds, she sat without speaking, watching raindrops slide down the window. Thinking. Not about Amber. Not really. People like Amber existed everywhere. The deeper question was whether Skybridge had built a culture that allowed people like Amber to thrive. That was what mattered. Her phone rested beside her, dark, silent, waiting. Monica picked it up, opened her contacts, scrolled once, then stopped. Marcus Webb, her attorney, her advisor. One of the few people who understood exactly how seriously she took questions of character. She pressed call. The line connected immediately. Marcus sounded awake, as always. "Monica." She looked once more toward the aircraft in the distance. The rain blurred its shape. Then she spoke 4 words. Dissolve the entire deal. Silence. Not because Marcus was confused, because he understood perfectly. The significance landed instantly. $300 million. 7 months of negotiations. Gone. Just like that. Finally, he spoke. Are you certain? Monica didn't hesitate. Yes. Another pause. Then Marcus sighed quietly. Not disagreement. Acceptance. I'll handle it. The call ended. Monica placed the phone down. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Somewhere high above Manhattan, Michael Grayson slept peacefully, unaware, still believing tomorrow would bring progress, still believing the rescue investment remained secure, still believing Monica Reed would be standing beside Skybridge Air. By dawn, an email would arrive. By breakfast, panic would begin. By lunchtime, an entire company would be asking the same terrifying question. What happened? And before anyone could answer it, Wall Street would begin answering for them. At 3:02 a.m., Michael Grayson's phone vibrated on the nightstand beside his bed. The CEO of Skybridge Air was a light sleeper. Years of corporate crises had trained him to wake at the smallest disturbance. His eyes opened immediately. For a moment he stared into the darkness, then reached for the phone. The screen illuminated the room. One new email. Sender, Marcus Webb. Michael sat upright instantly. Every executive involved in the Skybridge negotiations knew that name. Marcus Webb rarely sent messages after midnight, and when he did, they were important. Very important. Michael opened the email. The room became perfectly still. He read it once, then again, then a third time. The words remained unchanged, formal, brief, devastating. Effective immediately, Monica Reed and Horizon Capital were withdrawing from all investment discussions regarding Skybridge Air. No further negotiations would be pursued. No additional meetings would be scheduled. The pending transaction was terminated. Michael stared at the screen. For several seconds, he genuinely believed there had to be a mistake. A technical error, a misunderstanding, a draft sent accidentally. Something, anything. His heart began beating faster. He read the email again. Nothing changed. $300 million. Gone. 7 months of negotiations. Gone. The future he had spent months protecting. Gone. Outside his penthouse apartment, Manhattan slept beneath a layer of mist and rain. Inside, Michael felt the first real fear he had experienced in years. He immediately called Marcus. No answer. He called again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. Michael climbed out of bed. The city lights beyond his window suddenly looked colder, less beautiful. He dialed another number, then another. Within 15 minutes, 3 members of the board had been awakened. By 4 o'clock, Skybridge's general counsel was online. By 4:30, investor relations joined the emergency call. Nobody understood what had happened. That was the worst part. There had been no warning, no dispute, no indication the deal was in trouble. Every conversation had been positive. Every review had gone smoothly. The signing was supposed to happen in less than 2 days. Michael paced across his living room. This doesn't make sense. Nobody disagreed. Because it didn't. At least not yet. Meanwhile, 20 miles away at a modest airport hotel near JFK, Olivia Martinez couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of her bed staring at her laptop. The flight had ended hours ago. Yet her mind remained trapped inside that cabin. She kept seeing Monica Reed sitting beside Arthur, helping him breathe, helping him through panic, helping him despite everything. Then she remembered Amber. The confrontation. The humiliation. The moment everything changed. Olivia had spent most of the night debating whether she should report what happened. The company encouraged reporting, officially. Reality often looked different. Amber had seniority, influence, friends in management. Olivia had neither. Still, she couldn't ignore what she'd seen. Finally, just after midnight, she opened her laptop and began writing. Every detail, every interaction, every comment, every witness, every minute. The report grew longer and longer. By the time she finished, nearly an hour had passed. She attached the passenger manifest, the incident notes, the internal profile confirming Monica's identity. Then she hesitated. Her finger hovered over the send button. This would change things. Possibly her career. Possibly her future. Maybe both. Olivia thought about Arthur. Then about Monica. Then about the kind of person she wanted to be. Finally, she pressed send. The email disappeared into cyberspace. A small action. A huge consequence. And now, sitting in her hotel room hours later, she wondered whether she had just made the smartest decision of her life, or the worst. Back in Manhattan, the answer was beginning to emerge. At 5:37 a.m., Michael Grayson arrived at Skybridge headquarters. The building was nearly empty. Only security guards and cleaning crews occupied the lobby. Rain tapped softly against the massive glass walls. The city beyond remained gray and quiet. Michael moved quickly, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. The board chair arrived 15 minutes later. Then legal, then finance, then investor relations. Nobody smiled. Nobody wasted time. The atmosphere felt like a hospital emergency room moments before surgery. Urgent, focused, fearful. At 6:12 a.m., Michael's executive assistant entered the conference room carrying a tablet. Her expression immediately caught his attention. There's something else. The room looked up. What? She handed him the device. Michael frowned. An email. Forwarded internally. Subject line. Urgent incident report. Flight 728. His stomach tightened. He opened it. Then began reading. The room watched his expression change. Confusion, concern, disbelief. Then something worse. Recognition. The report described everything. The seating dispute, the repeated comments, the treatment Monica received, Arthur's panic attack, the confrontation, the incident itself. And attached to the report was something Michael never expected to see. A passenger photograph. Monica Reed. Confirmed. Verified. A passenger aboard Flight 728. Silence filled the room. The board chairman spoke first. What is this? Michael didn't answer. He couldn't. Because for the first time, the impossible withdrawal suddenly made perfect sense. The conference room door opened. Another executive entered carrying additional files. Security footage just came in. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The footage was loaded onto the conference room screen. Then they watched. Every minute. Every interaction. Everything. The room remained silent. By the time the video ended, no one needed explanations anymore. No one needed theories. No one needed speculation. They had their answer. What happened? This happened. The board chairman slowly removed his glasses. Nobody spoke. Finally, Michael looked around the table. His voice sounded older than it had 6 hours earlier. What have we done? The question hung in the air, because everyone understood the truth. Skybridge hadn't lost Monica Reed because of a negotiation problem, or a financial disagreement, or a legal complication. They had lost her because one employee revealed something ugly, and nobody stopped it. At 7:03 a.m., the first article appeared. A small financial publication, 4 paragraphs. One headline: Investors question Skybridge financing. Following unexpected withdrawal. The article spread quickly. By 7:45 a.m., larger outlets had picked it up. By 8:20 a.m., analysts began asking questions. By 9 a.m., the market was waiting, and Wall Street hates uncertainty. At 9:30 a.m., the opening bell rang. The reaction was immediate. Skybridge stock fell, then fell again, then fell harder. 8%, 12%, 17%. The numbers flashed across monitors throughout Manhattan. Analysts demanded explanations. Shareholders demanded answers. Phones rang non-stop. Inside headquarters, panic spread floor by floor. Employees whispered in hallways. Executives locked themselves in conference rooms. Investor relations teams scrambled to contain rumors. Nothing worked. Because the market had already reached a conclusion. Confidence was disappearing. Fast. At 10:17 a.m., Michael stood alone in his office. The city stretched beyond the windows, bright now, busy, unforgiving. His phone continued vibrating. Messages, calls, questions, demands. He ignored them all. Instead, he looked at the photograph sitting on his desk. Monica Reed. Smiling during a charity event. A woman he had spent months trying to convince. A woman who had wanted to help. A woman who believed companies could change. Michael suddenly understood something painful. The investment had never been the most valuable thing Monica offered. Trust was, and trust was now gone. Completely. Elsewhere in the city, Monica sat quietly in her office overlooking the river. No celebration, no satisfaction, no triumph. Only stillness. A television played softly in the background. Financial commentators discussed Skybridge's falling stock price. She muted the volume. The numbers didn't matter. Not really. The real loss had happened long before the market opened. The real loss was cultural, human, moral. Money was simply the symptom. Her assistant Joanne entered carrying coffee. Rough morning for them. Monica looked out the window. Rain still drifted across Manhattan. Yes. Joanne sat down. You okay? Monica thought about the question, then nodded. I'm disappointed. Not angry. Not vindictive. Disappointed. Because somewhere deep down, she had genuinely hoped Skybridge would prove her wrong. Instead, they had proven her right. And before the day ended, the consequences would become impossible for anyone to ignore. By early afternoon, Skybridge Air no longer controlled the story. The story controlled Skybridge. Television screens throughout Manhattan flashed financial updates. Business reporters stood outside the company's headquarters. Market analysts filled television panels with speculation. Investors demanded explanations. Employees exchanged worried glances in elevators and hallways. Everywhere, the same question echoed. How could a company lose a $300 million rescue deal overnight? Inside the executive conference room on the 38th floor, Michael Grayson looked exhausted. The morning had aged him. Several board members sat silently around the table. Nobody argued anymore. Nobody denied reality. The numbers on the screen made denial impossible. The stock continued falling. Major investors were requesting emergency meetings. Several corporate partners had already paused discussions. The company's reputation was deteriorating almost as quickly as its market value, and every new hour brought another unpleasant surprise. The head of human resources entered carrying a folder. The room immediately went quiet. Michael looked up. What now? The woman hesitated, then placed the folder on the table. Additional witness statements. Nobody seemed happy to hear that. Because every new statement told the same story. A story that was becoming harder and harder to dismiss as an isolated mistake. A culture problem. A leadership problem. A values problem. The board chairman slowly closed his eyes. This should have been impossible. Michael didn't answer. Because deep down he knew something uncomfortable. It hadn't been impossible. It had been inevitable. A company becomes what it tolerates. And sometimes what it tolerates remains invisible until the worst possible moment. Several floors below, employees watched the news on their phones. Many recognized Monica Reed immediately. Not because of her wealth, because of her reputation. For years, she had quietly funded scholarships, community centers, veteran support programs, technology training initiatives. She wasn't famous for being rich. She was respected because of what she did with her wealth. That made the story even worse. People weren't asking why Monica withdrew. People understood why. The question now was why Skybridge had allowed the situation to happen at all. Across town, Olivia Martinez sat in a small coffee shop near the East River. She had finished her shift hours earlier, yet she still felt emotionally exhausted. The television mounted above the counter displayed financial coverage. Skybridge's name appeared repeatedly. The stock chart looked like a cliff. Olivia stared into her coffee. Part of her felt guilty. Another part didn't. She kept replaying that night. The seating dispute. The comments. Arthur's panic attack. Monica helping him. Amber's choices. The confrontation. The consequences. Eventually, her phone buzzed. An unfamiliar number. Olivia almost ignored it, then answered. Hello? A calm, professional voice greeted her. Olivia Martinez? Yes. My name is Joanne Parker. I'm calling on behalf of Monica Reed. Olivia nearly dropped the phone. Several customers looked over. She lowered her voice immediately. I'm sorry. What? Joanne smiled on the other end. At least it sounded like she did. Ms. Reed would like to speak with you. Olivia sat perfectly still. For a moment, she genuinely wondered whether someone was playing a joke. Then she remembered who Monica was. People like Monica Reed didn't make prank calls. When? If you're available tomorrow afternoon. Olivia swallowed. Yes. A pause. Then she asked the question she couldn't stop herself from asking. Why? Joanne's answer came immediately. Because you did the right thing when it would have been easier not to. The line went quiet. Olivia felt emotion rising unexpectedly in her chest. She hadn't expected recognition. She certainly hadn't expected gratitude. I understand. Excellent. Joanne gave her the details. Time, location, address. Then ended the call. Olivia sat motionless for several seconds afterward. The coffee shop continued around her. People talked. Dishes clinked. The espresso machine hissed. Life carried on. Yet everything suddenly felt different. Not because opportunity had appeared, because someone had noticed. Someone had seen what she tried to do. For reasons she couldn't fully explain, that mattered very much. Across the city, Monica Reed stood near the windows of her office. Rain drifted against the glass. The Hudson River reflected silver beneath heavy clouds. Joanne entered carrying a folder. She accepted. Monica nodded. I thought she would. Joanne sat down. Most people wouldn't have sent that report. I know. Monica turned toward the city. That was exactly why Olivia mattered. Character revealed itself under pressure. Not during easy moments, during difficult ones. When doing the right thing carried risk. Olivia had chosen honesty despite knowing it could cost her. That kind of courage was rare and valuable. Joanne opened another folder. This is the latest update on Freedom Wings. Monica smiled slightly. Finally. Something hopeful. Freedom Wings was a regional airline few people outside the industry paid attention to. Smaller than Skybridge, less glamorous, less visible. But Monica had been studying the company for nearly 2 years. She had flown anonymously on their routes, watched employees interact with passengers, observed gate agents, flight crews, managers. The culture felt different, healthier, more human. They weren't perfect. No company was. But they genuinely tried. That mattered. Joanne slid a report across the desk. The leadership team is interested. They should be. They know you're considering an investment. Monica looked down at the documents. $300 million. The same amount once intended for Skybridge. The same money now searching for a better home. A place where values weren't just marketing language. A place where kindness wasn't accidental. A place where dignity mattered. The decision felt easier now than it had 24 hours earlier. Not because Monica wanted revenge, because she wanted results. Money changes organizations, but only when invested in the right people. Her phone buzzed. A text message. Marcus Webb. Board members from Skybridge requesting meeting. Monica read the message, then locked her phone. No. Joanne nodded. She had expected that answer. Should I tell Marcus? Please. Monica returned her attention to the rain. Outside, traffic crawled through Manhattan streets. Thousands of strangers hurried home, each carrying invisible stories, invisible struggles, invisible victories. She thought about Arthur. She wondered whether he had made it safely home. She thought about Olivia, a young woman trying to preserve her integrity in an imperfect system. And she thought about Amber Collins, not with satisfaction, not with anger, with sadness. Because Amber had convinced herself that appearances revealed character. Yet all appearances really revealed was bias. True character only appeared through actions, and Monica had spent her entire life learning that lesson. The hard way. At Skybridge headquarters, Amber Collins sat alone in a small conference room. Her access badge no longer worked. Her company email had been disabled. Her phone contained dozens of missed calls, some from reporters, some from strangers, some from people she considered friends. The room felt smaller every hour. Earlier that morning, Human Resources had shown her the footage. Every second, every angle, every decision. Now she sat staring at her own reflection in the dark television screen mounted on the wall. For the first time, certainty was leaving her. The assumptions she had carried for years, the confidence, the excuses. All of it felt weaker now, less solid, and that frightened her. Because people can survive consequences. What they struggle to survive is seeing themselves clearly. Meanwhile, somewhere across Manhattan, Olivia Martinez folded the piece of paper containing Monica Reed's office address, then slipped it carefully into her purse. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring, no idea why Monica wanted to meet, no idea how much her life was about to change. But for the first time since Flight 728 landed, she felt something other than anxiety. Hope. And sometimes hope arrives quietly, not with headlines, not with applause, not with dramatic speeches. Sometimes it arrives through a single phone call, a single opportunity, a single person deciding that doing the right thing deserves to be remembered. By the end of the week, Olivia would discover that Monica Reed wasn't interested in rewarding loyalty, or obedience, or ambition. She was looking for something much rarer. Someone willing to stand alone when standing alone was difficult. And that search was about to change both of their lives. The meeting took place 7 days later. The rain had finally left Manhattan. Morning sunlight reflected from glass towers and shimmered across the Hudson River. For the first time in nearly 2 weeks, the city felt lighter. But inside Skybridge Air headquarters, the atmosphere remained heavy. The company was still bleeding value. The stock had stabilized, but at a level far below where it had stood before Monica Reed's withdrawal. Investors remained nervous. Sponsors remained cautious. Employees remained uncertain. And Michael Grayson spent most days moving from one emergency meeting to another. The crisis had not ended. It had merely stopped accelerating. Meanwhile, 30 blocks away, Monica Reed sat inside a conference room overlooking the river. No cameras, no reporters, no publicity. Just a quiet room with a round wooden table and 2 cups of coffee. Across from her sat Olivia Martinez. The young flight attendant looked nervous. She had changed clothes 3 times before leaving her apartment, not because she wanted to impress Monica, because she had no idea what to expect. Monica noticed immediately. "Relax." Olivia laughed awkwardly. "I'm trying. I can tell." The tension eased slightly. For several moments they talked about ordinary things. Chicago, New York, travel, family. Nothing related to Skybridge. Nothing related to the incident. Only after nearly 15 minutes did Monica finally ask the question she actually cared about. "Why did you send the report?" Olivia had expected the question. Still, she needed a moment. Outside the window, a ferry moved slowly across the river. Finally, she answered. "Because it was true." Monica waited. Olivia continued. "I knew there could be consequences. There usually are." "I know." A small smile crossed Monica's face. The young woman wasn't naive. That mattered. Olivia looked down at her coffee, then back up. "My father always told me something." "What?" "He said your character isn't revealed when everyone agrees with you." Monica leaned back. "And?" Olivia smiled faintly. "He said character shows up when being honest costs something." Silence filled the room, not uncomfortable silence, thoughtful silence. Monica recognized the answer immediately, because it sounded like something her own mother might have said. Finally, she nodded. "Your father sounds wise." Olivia laughed. He'd be very happy to hear that. The interview lasted another 20 minutes. No trick questions, no pressure, no corporate jargon. When it ended, Monica stood and extended her hand. "I'd like to offer you a position." Olivia blinked. "A position?" Monica nodded. "Director of Passenger Experience." The young woman stared, certain she had misheard. "For who?" Monica smiled. "Freedom Wings." The words hung in the air. Freedom Wings. The airline everyone in the industry had suddenly begun discussing. The airline connected to Monica's next investment. The airline quietly preparing to become something much larger. Olivia swallowed. "I don't know what to say." "You can start with yes." The answer escaped before she could stop it. "Yes." Both women laughed. And just like that, a new chapter of Olivia's life began. 3 weeks later, Monica Reed walked through the headquarters of Freedom Wings. The building couldn't have been more different from Skybridge. No marble floors, no giant digital displays, no expensive artwork. The structure was functional, modest, efficient, the kind of place built for work rather than appearances. Monica preferred it immediately. The airline's CEO, Rebecca Lawson, greeted her personally. Rebecca was a former Air Force pilot. Direct, practical, authentic. Everything Monica respected. Together they toured the facility, call centers, training rooms, operations centers, maintenance departments. Everywhere Monica looked, she saw something rare. Employees who seemed genuinely respected. Not perfectly. No company achieved perfection, but consistently. And consistency mattered. A customer service trainer stood before a group of new hires. Monica quietly listened from the back of the room. The instructor wasn't discussing luxury, or revenue, or upselling premium seats. Instead, she asked a simple question. What is the first thing every passenger deserves? The room considered it. One trainee answered, respect. The instructor smiled. Correct. Another trainee spoke. Dignity. Also correct. Monica exchanged a glance with Rebecca. Neither woman said anything. They didn't need to. The difference was obvious. Weeks later, the investment became official. $300 million. The exact amount once intended for Skybridge. But the conditions attached to it surprised the industry. Most investment agreements focused on profit, expansion, growth, operational efficiency. Monica included those requirements too. But she added something else. Every employee would receive ongoing training in dignity-based service. Anonymous reporting systems would protect workers who spoke up. Executive bonuses would be partially tied to passenger treatment metrics. Independent audits would evaluate company culture, not just financial performance. Wall Street initially laughed. Then Freedom Wings started growing. Fast. New routes opened. Customer satisfaction climbed. Corporate accounts increased. Media coverage improved. Travel publications praised the airline's culture. Passengers noticed. People always notice when they're treated well. And unlike marketing campaigns, genuine kindness couldn't be faked forever. One afternoon, months later, Monica visited a Freedom Wings terminal without warning, just as she had always done. No announcements, no special preparation, no publicity. She sat quietly near a departure gate, watching, observing, learning. An elderly passenger struggled with his luggage. Before he could ask, a gate agent stepped forward. A young mother needed help folding a stroller. 3 employees assisted. A nervous first-time flyer admitted he was afraid. A customer service representative spent 10 minutes reassuring him. No cameras recorded any of it. No executives watched. No rewards were offered. People simply helped. Monica smiled. This was what she wanted. Not perfection. Humanity. Nearby, Olivia Martinez emerged from a meeting room. Her new role suited her. Confidence replaced uncertainty. Purpose replaced anxiety. When she noticed Monica sitting alone near the gate, she laughed. You do realize most investors don't secretly inspect their own companies. Monica smiled. Most investors miss a lot of important things. Olivia sat beside her. Together, they watched passengers moving through the terminal. Families, business travelers, retirees, students. Thousands of stories crossing paths. Do you ever regret it? Olivia asked.
Is there something on your
Monica knew what she meant.
We're here to
Skybridge,
need anything.
the investment, the controversy, everything. She considered the question carefully, then shook her head. No. Not because she enjoyed what happened. She didn't. Lives had been disrupted. Careers had ended. Pain had followed. But ignoring the truth would have created a different kind of damage. A quieter damage. The kind that spreads unnoticed. Olivia nodded slowly. She understood. Across the country, Skybridge continued struggling. New leadership had arrived. Reforms had begun. The company was trying, genuinely trying, but rebuilding trust takes longer than losing it. Far longer. Monica hoped they succeeded. She truly did. Not because they deserved rescue, because thousands of innocent employees depended on the outcome. The world already contained enough failure. What it needed more of was learning, growth, change. As afternoon sunlight poured through the terminal windows, Monica stood. Passengers moved around them. Announcements echoed overhead. Life continued, always moving forward. Olivia watched her go, then smiled. Months earlier, she had boarded a flight expecting an ordinary workday. Instead, she had witnessed a lesson she would carry forever. One person's kindness, one person's courage, one person's refusal to compromise their values. Sometimes that was enough to change an airline, and sometimes it was enough to change a life. Neither woman knew it yet. But before long, someone from the past would come looking for Monica Reed. Someone carrying regret. Someone carrying an apology. Someone hoping, perhaps for the first time in her life, to be seen clearly. Her name was Amber Collins, and their final meeting would reveal whether consequences alone can change a person, or whether true change requires something deeper. 6 months later, autumn settled gently over New York City. The air carried the crisp scent of fallen leaves. Trees lining the sidewalks had turned shades of gold, amber, and crimson. The city seemed calmer somehow, not quieter. New York was never quiet, but calmer, as if time had softened the sharp edges of old wounds. Freedom wings had grown beyond every forecast. Passengers praised the airline's service. Industry publications highlighted its culture. Customer satisfaction rankings climbed steadily. The company wasn't the largest airline in the country. It wasn't the richest. It wasn't the flashiest. But increasingly, it was becoming something more valuable. Trusted. And trust, Monica Reed knew better than most, could not be purchased. Only earned. On a bright Thursday afternoon, hundreds of guests gathered inside a newly completed aviation training center on the outskirts of the city. The facility represented Monica's latest investment, not in aircraft, not in technology, in people. The building featured classrooms, flight simulators, leadership programs, and scholarship initiatives designed to help students from underserved communities enter aviation careers. Above the entrance hung a simple inscription: "Respect first. Everything else follows." The phrase had become something of a motto. Reporters filled several rows near the front. Community leaders mingled with airline executives. Students wandered the halls in excitement. The atmosphere felt hopeful, optimistic. The kind of optimism that grows slowly through consistent effort rather than empty promises. Backstage, Monica adjusted the sleeve of her navy blazer. She had never enjoyed public speaking. People always assumed otherwise. The truth was much simpler. She preferred listening. Listening taught you things. Talking mostly taught others about you. Joanne stood nearby holding a clipboard. "You ready?" Monica smiled. "As ready as I ever am." Joanne laughed. "That usually means yes." The program began. One speaker followed another. Community leaders, educators, veterans, aviation executives. Then Monica's name was announced. The audience rose in applause. As always, the attention made her slightly uncomfortable. She walked to the podium anyway. The room gradually settled. Hundreds of faces looked toward her. Students, employees, families, people hoping for opportunity, people hoping for change. Monica looked across the audience for a moment before speaking. Then she began. "When I was a little girl growing up in Chicago, people often made decisions about me before they knew me." The room became still. Her voice remained calm, measured, authentic. They looked at where I lived. A pause. What I looked like. Another pause. What they believed someone like me could become. The audience listened carefully. No dramatic music, no grand performance. Just truth. Monica spoke about her mother, about long workdays, about perseverance, about the people who helped her when they had little themselves. She spoke about dignity, respect, character, the values that had guided her long before money entered her life. Then she shared the lesson she believed mattered most. Real power isn't wealth. The room remained silent. It isn't status. She smiled slightly. It isn't titles. Another pause. Real power is knowing who you are when other people try to tell you who you should be. The words settled over the audience. Many students nodded. Several took notes. Others simply listened. Monica continued. Every person who walks through a door deserves to be treated like a human being before they prove a single thing. The room erupted in applause, not because the idea was revolutionary, because it was true, and sometimes truth resonates more deeply than novelty. When Monica finished, the audience rose to its feet. A standing ovation filled the room. She thanked them politely, then stepped away from the podium, exactly as she always did. No dramatic exit, no celebration, just quiet gratitude. As she moved toward the side of the stage, someone called her name. Miss Reed. The voice sounded familiar, very familiar. Monica turned. Arthur, the elderly passenger from Flight 728. His smile appeared brighter than she remembered. Healthier, too. He walked with more confidence now. In one hand, he carried a small framed photograph. My goodness, Monica laughed. Arthur, the old man grinned. I figured you'd be surprised. A little. He handed her the photograph. It showed Arthur and his late wife standing beside a lake, both smiling, both young, both happy. I wanted you to have this. Monica looked up. Arthur, this belongs to you. He nodded. It does. Then his expression softened. But I wanted you to know something. The crowd continued moving around them. Yet for a moment, the world seemed smaller, quieter, more personal. Arthur pointed toward the photograph. My wife always believed kindness was the most valuable thing a person could leave behind. Monica swallowed. The old man smiled. The night you sat beside me on that plane. His voice caught slightly. You reminded me she was right. Neither spoke for several seconds. Some gifts cannot be measured. This was one of them. Finally, Monica hugged him. A brief, sincere embrace. The kind shared between people whose lives intersected unexpectedly, yet meaningfully. After Arthur left, Joanne approached carefully. There is someone else here. Monica immediately recognized the tone. Not concern, not alarm. Something closer to uncertainty. Who? Joanne hesitated, then answered. Amber Collins. The name hung in the air. Months earlier it would have carried anger. Now it carried something different. Distance. Time changes emotions, sometimes dramatically. Monica considered the information, then nodded.
Let's go.
Where is she? A small conference room overlooked the parking lot. Late afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows. Amber Collins stood beside the glass when Monica entered. She looked different. Older somehow. Not physically. Emotionally. The confidence that once defined her had softened. The certainty had disappeared entirely. She turned slowly. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Amber took a breath. I wasn't sure you'd agree to see me. Monica sat down. I wasn't sure either. The honesty surprised both of them. Amber nodded. Fair enough. Silence followed. Not hostile silence. Difficult silence. The kind required before truth can emerge. Finally, Amber spoke. I'm sorry. The words arrived without excuses, without explanations, without qualifications, just an apology. Monica listened. Amber continued. For months, I kept telling myself I didn't know who you were. She looked down, ashamed, as if that somehow made things better. Monica remained quiet, because she already knew where this was going. Amber shook her head. But that's the problem, isn't it? Her voice grew softer. I didn't know who you were. A painful laugh escaped her, and I thought that helped my case. The room fell silent again. Sunlight shifted slowly across the floor. Outside, leaves drifted through the parking lot. Amber looked directly at Monica. For the first time, truly looked. I decided what you were worth before I knew anything about you. Her eyes filled with tears. Not dramatic tears. Human ones. I thought respect was something people earned. Monica leaned back, then spoke. No. Amber looked up. No? Monica shook her head. Respect is where you start. The words landed heavily, because they were exactly what Amber needed to hear. Not punishment. Truth. The room remained quiet. Finally, Amber asked the question she had carried for months. Can you forgive me? Monica considered it carefully. The answer mattered. Not because forgiveness changes the past, because honesty matters. Especially here. Especially now. I don't know. Amber nodded slowly. The answer hurt, yet she appreciated it, because it was real. Monica continued. What matters more is what you do next. Amber listened. What kind of person do you become after this? The question lingered. There was no easy answer, no shortcut, no guarantee, only choice. One choice after another. Eventually, the meeting ended. Amber stood. So did Monica. Neither woman reached for a handshake. Neither needed to. Something more important had happened. Truth had finally entered the room. Amber walked toward the door, then stopped. I hope someday I earn that forgiveness. Monica smiled gently. I hope someday you stop trying to earn it and start trying to deserve it. Amber nodded, then left. Monica watched the door close behind her. For a long moment, she remained alone in the room. Quiet, thoughtful, at peace. Later that evening, the final guests departed. The training center emptied. The sun settled beneath the horizon. Golden light washed across the city. Monica exited through a side door with Joanne. No cameras followed. No reporters waited. Just a quiet sidewalk, a waiting car, and another ordinary evening. As they walked, Monica noticed a young student standing near the entrance. The girl couldn't have been older than 16. She looked nervous, excited, hopeful. Miss Reed? Monica stopped. The teenager smiled. I want to work in aviation someday. Monica smiled back. Then do it. The girl's eyes widened. Really? Really? A pause. Then Monica added softly, and remember something. The student listened carefully. Monica glanced toward the training center, then toward the city beyond. Never decide someone's value before you've learned their story. The girl nodded. She would remember that. Monica suspected she would. As the car pulled away moments later, city lights began appearing one by one across the skyline. Joanne sat quietly beside her. Traffic flowed around them. Life moved forward. as it always does. Monica looked out the window and thought about everything that had happened. The flight, Arthur, Olivia, Skybridge, Amber. All connected by one simple lesson. The world changes when people choose to see each other clearly. Not perfectly, not completely, just clearly. And perhaps that was enough. Because the woman once mistaken for someone who didn't belong had never needed revenge. She only needed the truth to become visible. The rest had followed naturally. Outside, the city glowed beneath the evening sky, and somewhere among its millions of stories, another act of kindness was already beginning. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment below. Because sometimes the smallest act of respect can change a life you know nothing about. Think about that moment when Monica Reed stood in the rain after leaving the jet, said 4 quiet words to her lawyer, and walked away without shouting, arguing, or trying to humiliate anyone. In the end, it wasn't her billions that people remembered most. It was the way she treated Arthur when he was scared and alone.
The real lesson here is the pride of assumption. Amber Collins thought she knew who Monica was after a single glance, and that one judgment changed the course of her career. Sometimes, the greatest mistake we make aren't the thing we do. They're the story we create about people before we have taken the time to know them. Today, try one small thing. Think of one person you quietly dismissed, overlooked, or misunderstood and give them a second look. The next time you're tempted to decide who someone is in the first few seconds, remember Monica Reed. And remember how much of a person's story is invisible. If this story spoke to you, comment one below. And tell me honestly, have you ever judged by some people who never took the time to know you? I love to hear your story. And stay with us, because in our next story, a single act of kindness in the most unexpected way will uncover a secret that changes far more than one life.